I guess we can go ahead and get started. I know for most of you, I probably don't need to introduce Parag or give him much of an introduction, but I'll let him kick things off. If you want to take it away, Parag.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much. I'm really excited to be part of this webinar and want to thank all of our customers for joining and taking time out of your busy day to spend hopefully 45 minutes or so here. We're going to talk about how you can improve inventory management and product listings for your business to help you drive your growth. And yeah, it's meant to be an interactive webinar. So I've got Webgility's desktop product loaded. I've got a demo Shopify store loaded. And most of the things we'll talk about today will apply whether you use Shopify or any other sales channel. And we'll open up the lines if anyone's got questions as well along the way. And there's a questions section in your GoToWebinar panel. So please make sure that you type in your questions. I'll be following those along. And if you, I'll see if I can answer them immediately, or we can, dedicate some time towards the end to pick those up. But again, welcome to everyone. We've got a few folks still trickling in here, but we can go ahead and get started. My name is Parag Mamnani. I'm the founder and CEO of Webgility. I've done a few webinars, of course, with our customers, but we're starting off a new series of webinars that I'm hosting and driving with our product team here to give all of our customers insights into what we've been up to, what we've built, what the feature capabilities are of our software, but also use this as a great medium to get your feedback. So let us know what you feel, what you want us to build, and this is meant to be a two-way dialogue. So I'll certainly be sharing a lot of my thoughts and insights on how the software works and how it can really help your business, but definitely please chime in with your feedback. I'm looking at some folks that have filled it out. Looks like we've got some folks out here in California. I'm in San Diego. I see someone, Colleen is from Irvine. We've got Nancy joining us from Florida, Kay from Hendersonville, Amanda from Florida, and yeah, some folks from all over the United States. So excited to have you all. A little bit about my background. Been in the e-commerce industry now for a little over 2 decades, have been obviously driving Webgility forward for the last 15 years, and so have worked with many of small businesses to really help them grow their business and to figure out how to navigate what's seemingly a very constantly changing environment when it comes to e-commerce. So I would love to talk about so many things e-commerce, but today we're going to focus primarily on our product module and be talking about how you can get your listings, how you can manage your inventory better, and really how you can prevent overselling. Before we jump in, I'd love to get just sort of a sanity check on, where our customers are and all the audience on this particular call. So we're going to load up a couple of polls just to get some input from you on who you are and just help me tailor our presentation a little bit better and get a sense of where you're coming from, so make sure I can answer your question. So the first question we have is, which system do you use as your master for your product catalog and inventory? I have a feeling I know the answer to this, but good poll check. So John's going to load up this poll. If you're using QuickBooks Desktop, please go ahead and select QuickBooks Desktop, whether it's Pro Premier or Enterprise, fill that out. Or if you're using an online channel as your master inventory and product catalog, again, that's where you have your entire product catalog listed, and that's where your item quantities and pricing and so forth, that's where you're bringing it up from. Whether you're doing your online sales channel, your point of sale system, or if you have an entirely separate inventory warehouse management system that you're using. And last but not least, if you're using Excel and not really leveraging any of those existing applications. So the results are almost in. We'll just a few more folks to answer. If you could just hit that radio button on your screen to select which system you use as your master catalog and go ahead and hit submit. And we'll tally up the votes and we'll show you here just in a second what we've learned. So just a couple more people left here. We'll leave the poll open for another 10 seconds. If you won't mind, just select which system do you use as your master product catalog. And by the way, the reason this question and this is really important is because as a multi-channel, omni-channel business, what your master system is going to sort of drive how your different business workflows are going to be and how your other channels are going to adapt to changes that happen in your master system. So syncing of inventory, listing of products, all of that becomes really, really important depending on where you're running your catalog from. So almost all the votes are in here, and we just closed the poll. And John, let's load up the results. Okay. As I had hoped and suspected, almost 90% of the audience here is using QuickBooks as their master system of inventory. A few of you are using your point of sale system, and some folks, a couple of folks looks to be still on Excel, but most of you have moved to having QuickBooks as your master catalog, and a couple of people also are using their online sales channel. So this is great, and gives me really kind of a good foundation to start from in terms of our webinar today, because I will be talking a lot about what are all the value that we can provide and how can you automate all of your catalog and your inventory with using QuickBooks Desktop as your master catalog. So thank you for answering that poll. And I'm going to dive right in. We have a couple more things that I'm going to be asking you guys throughout the webinar. But let me switch over my deck here and start to share our demo screen with you. Okay, hopefully you guys can all see Webgility Desktop here. I'm running on the 9.5 version. Most of you, I hope, are already familiar with the dashboard interface. But for today's demo, I'm going to jump into the Products tab. And this is the product module. This is what helps you kind of manage all of your catalog. And catalog is, I would say, all of the products that are in that you're selling. And we're also going to talk about price management. We're going to talk about quantities. How do you get your inventory updated? But at a very high level, I'm using my demo store, which is a Shopify demo store. And I'm connected to QuickBooks Enterprise. And I'll walk you through that here in a second. So this is the products tab. Let's take a quick peek. This is my demo Shopify store. And if you're not using Shopify, not a problem. It should look somewhat similar to this. You're going to see a list of all of your active products. The products have a name, title, description. They have availability counts and then inventory. There's a vendor typically. You can have images and so forth. So it's a simple catalog. And I'm assuming here that this particular demo account, we're just selling apparel. And apparel is a good example usually because typically in apparel you have parent-child relationships, so you're creating variants of products. And that's usually one of the things that catches a lot of folks in terms of syncing and so forth. So we'll dive into that in a moment here. But quick overview is this is my catalog in my online store. And so, if anyone's confused, I'm actually just running a browser access to desktop. So I have a remote virtual environment. I actually use a Mac. So I like to have our Webgility Desktop application running in a virtual instance. So even though I'm on a Mac, I can still use the Webgility app. So that's why you're seeing desktop inside a browser window, if you're wondering. And I'm going to just open up here QuickBooks. So this is my demo QuickBooks company file. And over here, I have a set of products, some inventory items, a few kind of other charges for my shipping. I have my taxes and discounts. And this is my item list. And I'm assuming you all are familiar somewhat with all the basics of inventory management in QuickBooks, since most of you are running from there. So I won't go into as much detail on QuickBooks, but you can basically organize your catalog here in QuickBooks. And this is the demo catalog in Shopify. And now I'm going to minimize QuickBooks and I'm going to jump over to Webgility. The first thing you'll see in Webgility is we've got this highlight for what's missing in QuickBooks and what's missing in Shopify. And that's basically the place where you need to take action. But first, I'm going to actually open up here the All Products tab. So what this is saying, and this is basically pulling, I just did this a couple of minutes ago, but that's the latest catalog. So all of my Shopify products are now pulled into Webgility, and I'm able to see the entire catalog here, including the price, the quantity, and you can also see this icon here that says matched. So what that means is this is all of my products, but 3 of these products are matched up with items in QuickBooks. So what is matching and why does it matter? Well, as you know, if you're doing your accounting or you're tracking your inventory, Webgility needs to be able to match up your online catalog with your store catalog. I'm sorry, with your QuickBooks catalog. So your online catalog and QuickBooks catalogs have to match up. And so as long as the 2 products between the systems are matching, then Webgility can help you keep all the inventory counts and the pricing and so forth up to date. So matching is really important. And in order for products to match, you have to determine what is your matching criteria. And so typically the matching criteria is under sync settings. And when you're figuring out what your matching criteria is, the first thing you want to do is you want to specify what is the master catalog. So just as you guys said, your master catalog is QuickBooks. So under settings, product settings is typically where we use QuickBooks as the master data. And what that's telling me is that all of the product information that's in QuickBooks, the pricing, the quantity, I want that to sync up to all of my online sales channels. And I'll come back to the settings here in a second, but this is my overall catalog and it's telling me all the items that are there, they all match up. And for those of you that might have a very large catalog, if the SKUs don't match between your online store and QuickBooks, you can actually do what's called mapping. So let's say you have a SKU in your store and the SKU is different from QuickBooks. You can decide to map those items. And I'll walk you through here in a second how that works. And so just to keep the flow going, here's my catalog. I see that, let's just look at the first one. So I have a simple product here, SKU simple. And this product is currently, it says status is not there. So I'm going to go over and click on missing in QuickBooks, and I can see this SKU symbol is missing. I'm going to just go ahead and hit create. And this is going to create the item in QuickBooks. And you can see it's already pre-populated all of the information for the product based on what it pulled from Shopify. It's pre-populated the item type, the income account, the COGS account, the asset account. These are all of my preferred presets. So these are my presets. I've decided most of the times when I have a new product or any product I want to create, I can assign it. I want to make sure that they're inventory parts. Many of you might be also selling digital products, in which case you can change this to a non-inventory or a service part. I can specify an income, a COGS account, mark your taxable or not. I could set a preferred vendor. I can also set it to be dropship or not. And then basically I hit save and I hit create. And now the SKU symbol that was in my online store, just going to go over to QuickBooks, and SKU symbol is now created in QuickBooks. And all of the information from the online store in terms of the item name, the COGS account, the sales tax account that it's taxable, the inventory asset account, the on-hand quantity, all of the values are now automatically brought in. And now instead of 17 missing products, I have 16 missing products. And I also now know, and I go over the all products tab, you'll see this status is now matched. So now that these items are matched, there's really nothing else to do because the products are matching, the inventory counts are accurate, and the pricing is accurate as well. But what happens if once you've got your catalog matched, if the price and quantity is out of sync, what do you do? So before I jump to that, I'll also just quickly show you that the opposite can be done. So if I had a product that was not available in my online store, similar to something that's missing in QuickBooks, I would hit create product. Here, I'm going to go to missing in Shopify, and I can create this product, and I'll just go ahead and hit create. Now, because we're creating this product in the online channel, the set of options are a little bit different. It's not an accounting system, so you don't have to specify the income account, the COGS, or the asset accounts. What you have to provide are details. So you can actually get an image and assign the image to the product. You can set the title. You can set the SKU. It's automatically generated as t-shirt. You can set the price. All of these are pulled again from QuickBooks. I can assign it to a particular location. I can put it into a particular category. Let's just go ahead and say men's. I can mark the item as taxable or not. I can set a manufacturer from the set of manufacturers that are available. And I can also give it a product type, which is what's available in my online channel. So I'm just going to hit there. I can also add additional things like what the compare at price is. So let's say I want to set the compare at price to 25. I can assign the weight. Now remember, the weight's not available there, so I can just say it's a 1 pound. I hit save and hit create. This product's now going to get successfully created in Shopify. I just created the t-shirt. Let me go ahead and just hit refresh here. And we should have our t-shirt. Here we go. So the t-shirt's now loaded. As you can see, it brought in the price, the compare at price. It also brought in the cost from QuickBooks, the SKU, your tracking quantity, and I asked it to assign it to the San Francisco location. So it's been assigned, and the weight was brought in at 1 pound. So super easy to create products from your online channel down to QuickBooks, or vice versa. Create your QuickBooks products up to your online store. This is the creation process. And I don't have a demo of Amazon listings. I'm sure many of you might be curious about how to do that. We've got another recorded video on that, but it's a very similar process. The only difference between creating an item in an online channel versus Amazon is that in the case of Amazon, you're not actually creating a product. You're creating what's called a listing. And so you're going to search for the ASIN, that is the original product, and then you're going to assign your own SKU against that ASIN. So you search for the product in the Amazon catalog first, and then you create your listing against it. So there's a little bit of a nuance there, but the process is pretty straightforward. That's how you create products between your store and QuickBooks. And just to keep things a little bit interactive here, I am going to run a quick poll here so I could get a sense of how large is the catalog that most of you guys are running. So John's going to load up a poll here to ask, how many
And
products do you
actually,
have in your catalog?
it looks like Nancy Kolakovic has had her hand up for a while, so I wanted to give her an opportunity to ask the question. I'll unmute you on the mic, and if you wanted to ask your question there, and then I can start the poll.
Yeah, of course. Hi, Nancy. You might want to, I think we've unmuted you. Just make sure you hit the mic button green so you can, we can hear you.
Okay, I've hit the mic button green.
Hi there.
Hey.
Well, okay, my question quickly is, you mentioned something, assign it to a location, and it was San Francisco in that particular sample. I think that's why I joined this webinar, is because we now have 2 locations from which we are shipping, and I don't quite know how to have my Webgility, which I've been with since 2011.
Thank you.
I just anyone out there hear me? It saved our lives. But anyway, I don't quite know how to handle that from 2 locations.
Yes. So to be clear, you're referring to locations in your online channel, correct?
Actually, no, the online channel makes it look like we're shipping from 1 location. It just so happens that a good chunk of inventory is now shipping from a separate location as opposed to our warehouse or fulfillment center.
Okay. So basically, if you have, thank you, Nancy, for the question. And again, thank you for being a great customer of ours for so long. Really appreciate your business.
We appreciate you more.
Thank you. The if you start to fulfill your products from different locations, the location I was referencing is actually the location where the item's going to be sold from relative to your online channel. What you want to do is in your online store and if it's Shopify, make sure that you can go to any product and you can actually go here and click on edit locations. This is where you can edit kind of the existing locations you have, but you would need to actually go into your sales channel to create multiple locations and then allocate your inventory there. But that's if in your online channel, you're specifying different locations. In your
Okay.
case,
Okay. Well, we
which
can do that.
yeah, so you could
Go
do
ahead.
that. But in your particular instance, I believe you're fulfilling from multiple locations, not selling in multiple locations. Did I get that right?
Oh, forgive me. You're right. Yes. Fulfilling from 2 locations.
Okay. So what you want to do is, if you don't already have this, is you basically are going to need the advanced inventory, and
I have it.
and I don't have it unfortunately in my demo, but in your advanced inventory, QuickBooks has this concept of inventory sites. So you're going to need to enable inventory sites within QuickBooks, and that will allow you to specify. It will start to open up the inventory site concept in QuickBooks. So then when you're allocating stock to a location, you'll be able to allocate it to that site. And when Webgility pulls multiple sites from your QuickBooks, we'll be able to sync inventory at the site level.
Oh, that is marvelous. I get it. Okay. I get it. Thank you. Just one last question, and you don't have to answer it now. I don't want to take up someone else's time, but I'm still with 9.2, Webgility 9.2, because we had an issue transitioning to 9.3 with our enterprise version. And
Okay.
so and when you said 9.5, it makes me sound like we're way behind.
Yeah, it is a minor set of upgrades, but with every release, we also uncover feedback and question, things that customers have asked for.
Okay.
So there's definitely a lot that we can, you should be able to kind of hit within Webgility. If you go to help under check for updates, you should be able to get your product. Just run that and it'll probably tell you if there's a new version, and in this case 9.5 is available, so you should be able to run an upgrade from there. And if not, of course, just reach out to our support team if you need some help with that upgrade process.
Yeah, I'll do that, because I had to do that last time, and they're all wonderful. They're all wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the question.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you for taking it.
of course. And to Nancy's question also, you can turn on advanced inventory to set up inventory sites if you haven't already done so. And once you turn it on, you can see there's a step-by-step guide here on how to set up different inventory sites. So please check that out if you're in the same boat and you have multiple inventory locations. Thank you for that question, Nancy. And we're going to go ahead and open up a quick poll here to just get a sense of how large the catalog is, how many products you're selling. So if you don't mind, everyone, please take a second here and just hit that radio button if you have less than 10 products, 11 to 100, over 100, or over 1,000 products. And we'll get a little bit of an idea of who all the participants are here in the audience. Okay, I've got all the votes coming in, and we'll just give it another 10 seconds if you could. Just go ahead and select that radio button for how many products are in your catalog. Okay, the results are in, and awesome. You're the perfect audience for this webinar, because we're going to be covering, since we are covering a lot of kind of bulk automation features here as well. But if you've got a large catalog of over 100, or for half of you over 1,000 products, you're going to really need to make sure that your catalog is squared away, because I know that a lot of our customers, I mean, the number one reason you come to use Webgility is because you want to automate your accounting. But the reality is, in order to automate your accounting, you got to get your catalog right. your products have to match up correctly, because as you know, in order to do the right accounting, you have to record the sale against the right product. You want to make sure your asset values are adjusted accordingly. You want to know that the right cost of goods sold was accounted for. So your financials are going to be off if your catalog is not right. And also, there are a lot of workflows that can be automated, including automatically generating purchase orders for your products if you're running low on inventory. And that's all going to be driven based on how well your catalog is organized. So thank you for that. And we'll pop back here into the demo and go back through. So I just showed you, before that question, we just talked quickly about products and creating simple products. So I would strongly recommend, if you haven't already done so, make sure that this missing in QuickBooks is down to 0. Nothing should be missing. What you want to do is make sure the catalog in your online channel matches up with your catalog in QuickBooks. And by the way, we also come across a lot of customers who might have a massive catalog in QuickBooks, but you're not selling everything on every channel, and that's okay. So if that's the case, right now I'm in the Shopify demo store. If for this particular demo store, let's say I have, I don't know, let's call it this Fila shirt, and let's say I don't want to actually do anything with it. I can also choose to ignore this product. So let's say since most people are using QuickBooks, I'm going to actually go to missing in Shopify here. So this particular product, if you don't want to list it, you can actually ignore that product, or you can go ahead and map it to an alternative product as well. So and we also provide the ability to do bulk mapping. So when you go over to the All Products tab, this is where in QuickBooks I can say, I have this one particular product, but I don't care to actually list it in my Shopify store. Just go ahead and hit ignore. And because it's ignored, it'll have this sort of ignored icon next to it in the future. And if it's ignored, the reports for whether the price or quantity are in sync are going to zero out. So it's not going to tell you that the price and quantity are out of sync because those products are being ignored. And you have to do that also for items in QuickBooks that are not of inventory type. So here we have delivery charges out of state. Now QuickBooks, as you know, tracks even taxes as an item. It shows up in your item list, but it shows us as a sales tax item type. And you don't want to sync that sales tax item up to your store. So I like to just set those to be ignored status. And that way they don't show up in any of my I almost think of, these sections as like your inbox, right? And you always want to have inbox 0, right? So if something's missing, something's out of sync, you just set it to, take care of that action and zero it out. So we talked a little bit about item creation between your channel and QuickBooks and vice versa. We talked about mapping. Actually, let me go ahead and show you how mapping really works. So this particular item, I've said this WDC1 is missing in my online store. Instead of creating it, I can also map it. So I go ahead and hit the map button, and it's going to do a search. And I can choose to map that to this PLFD1. And that's it. So if I have different SKU naming conventions between my online store and QuickBooks, I can choose to create a mapping so that I don't have to go ahead and change all of my SKUs. Now, for those of you that have a catalog of a couple of hundred products, I would strongly recommend that you actually normalize and make sure the SKUs in your online channel are the same as your SKUs in QuickBooks. SKUs are really critical. They help a lot with communication, especially between even your teams. They should be an easy way to recognize a product by looking at a SKU. Most of you maybe are already doing that, but you'd be surprised at how many customers we come across that haven't thought through what's the best way to organize their SKUs. I would recommend some sort of a schema that really helps you, that maybe even tells you what the category of the product is, gives you maybe the manufacturer and some sort of an identifier, and make them all unique. So that keeps it really, really clean and simple. But having unique SKUs is paramount at recognizing your inventory and your products. And don't repeat the same SKU, even if you had a product in the past and now you're coming up with a new product. Like, try to come up with a new SKU every time. And those SKUs are really important, again, not just because it's an identifier for Webgility to post an order, an item correctly, or to sync the items. I think down the chain, even with your warehouse staff or your fulfillment teams, they'll have a much easier time identifying things, and training is a lot easier when product SKUs are really well established. So in my particular demo, I have just some random random SKU names here. But if you come up with a good naming schema, make sure your SKUs are right. The other thing to quickly point out about product naming and sort of best practices, most of you have probably already faced this problem, but in your online in your QuickBooks, you can put whatever you want in your item name / number, and there's actually no SKU field. And you can create custom fields for SKUs, but item name / number is the unique identifier in QuickBooks. It is the unique field for it. So make sure that you're using that field and make it accurate. And also in QuickBooks, the sub item, just like a Shopify channel has parent and child items, it's sort of the opposite in QuickBooks, where you specify the item and make it a sub item of something. And so if you have a shirt and you want to make it a sub item of something else, this is how you would do that. So I can make this shirt a sub item of something else. And when something is a sub item, the item name number is like, you got to really figure out what that naming convention is to make that catalog really work. But I digress. You have a lot of choices. Just make sure your SKUs are right. And in terms of your product catalog, Webgility does, if you don't already have everything matching, we have the ability to create an export value of all of your products, and you can match them up. You can map them through an Excel sheet as well. But once your product catalog is matched, then we'll get on to the next thing, which is everything's matched. It's all mapped up. Now, how do I actually keep the price and quantity in sync, and how do I prevent overselling? So price and quantity is pretty straightforward. The simplest use case is, I've got this one product. You can see it says the Shopify quantity is this, and it brings up which quantity is out of sync. You would simply just click the button and hit the sync button here, and it'll update the sync values, which is really simple. So you could do this once, you could do it multiple times, but really this is simplistic syncing. It's syncing when the quantity in your QuickBooks is supposed to be the same as the quantity in your online channel, and the price in QuickBooks is the same as the price in your online channel. So if you have simple logic that you just want the price and quantity to be the same, then it's easy. You can come into this view. If the quantity is out of sync, just come in here and hit the sync button periodically. Or like most of our customers, I assume you'd want to be using what's called our scheduler. And give me a second here. I'm going to open up the scheduler. And the scheduler service is basically going to do what perform all of these automation tasks for you, and it's going to do them in the background. So the scheduler is now on and it's running. The scheduler runs in your system tray in your Windows machine. It's already on. I'm going to go ahead and hit settings. And for my Shopify demo store, I can specify what my settings are. Because the scheduler is already started and running, I have to first stop it before I can change any settings. I'm going to hit stop, so the scheduler's been stopped. Now, again, I'm going to ignore a bunch of these items and just focus on the product module for this particular demo. So what I'm going to say here is, my master data is QuickBooks. I do want to sync products. I want to sync the price and the quantity, and I can sync it every 5 minutes if I want. Just depends on how frequently you sell. And if you're wondering, why would I not want to sync every 5 minutes? Well, it really kind of depends on where your QuickBooks is and how frequently you access QuickBooks, because what happens is if you're not selling that fast in your online store, but you set syncing to happen every 5 minutes, it's going to connect to QuickBooks every 5 minutes to check. And if you're not on a powerful machine, as many of you might know, QuickBooks can get a little sluggish. So you want to set the time to be kind of ideal for what your sales velocity is. But you can set it up to sync. And because QuickBooks is your master catalog, it's going to say, do you want to create items as well? I don't like creating items automatically. I prefer to do them manually. I like to have my catalog clean. So we have this as an automation, but I would suggest you make sure your catalog is curated well, so QuickBooks is clean. But you're syncing once your product catalog is in sync, is matched up. That should happen, as quickly as, like I said, your sales velocity. But this is where you would come back in and just hit sync, hit save, and start your scheduler. And so syncing of products and price and quantity will happen automatically. Where I want to spend a little bit of time today is in some of the advanced settings, because I think the basics of inventory syncing, I hope most of you are already familiar with. But let's go over to sync settings that I showed you right at the top of the webinar. And let's talk about how you can really supercharge the syncing. How would you really automate things so that when you have a big catalog like most of the audience does, how do I actually get all of this to be supercharged? So the one thing that I would suggest you look at is automation rules. So we just talked about automation. It's going to sync all of your products, but all of that syncing is one-to-one, and it's the exact number. So if your quantity in QuickBooks is 10, it's going to sync 10 in your online channel. If your price is $20, it's going to sync $20 in your online channel. But what if you're selling multi-channel and you want your online store to have, or your online sales channel, whether it be a store or your marketplace account, what if you want the prices or the quantities to be allocated differently for each sales channel? So if you're a power user with multiple channels and you want to set different price and quantity rules, this is where you would do that. So there are two kind of levels of settings here, and the first level is a store level. So if you want to have a blanket rule that says, hey, if my quantity is a certain value in QuickBooks, I always want to have my sales channel just have maybe a couple less, right? Or maybe I want 5% less. So what you could do here is you could say, well, I don't have it in my demo account, but basically in this demo, what you could say is, I can set pricing rules. Somebody needs to upgrade my account. But you can set pricing rules that basically say, Shopify demo store, I always want it to be 90% of my QuickBooks quantity, and I want the price to always be 10% higher than QuickBooks. And it can be a percentage, or it can be a absolute amount. And that's exactly where you get to specify kind of at a blanket rule of a difference in price between your online store and your QuickBooks. Now, this is what I can do at a store level. I can also specify these advanced rules at an item level. And what that does is now, instead of just saying for all products, do all of those capabilities, all the price and quantity to be a fixed amount, instead, I can now specify that the price rules are at an item level. And so for this particular t-shirt, I always want the quantity to be higher or lower, and And you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and upgrade this demo account real quick behind the scenes and see if I can't actually demonstrate this. I'm sorry, just give me a moment. I'm gonna close this out. And let's go ahead and log back in to Webgility. So I can set price and quantity rules at a item level. And that's something that is, again, if you're selling on multiple channels, that's really, really powerful. And it'll help you set different rules for different channels. Yep, there we go. Okay, I've got it working. We're back. So I can save at a store level that I don't want to sync certain items. I want to make them a percentage higher than QuickBooks, equal to QuickBooks, or some variation thereof. And I can set this now at an item level. So I can say my t-shirt, I can set the quantity rule and say I want it to be a certain amount higher or lower. So what's going to happen is, as you can see in this example, my QuickBooks quantity is 100, but my online store quantity is going to be 98. So I don't have to have them be exactly matching. I can use a formula here. So I think this is really powerful for multi-channel sellers again. And so yeah, definitely go through those automation rules. The other quick things I'm going to talk about is the sync settings, where if you also want to sync costs, not all online stores need to calculate costs or have the cost fields filled out. Most cost is only sitting in your accounting system, but you can also sync cost value, which is a checkbox you would select here. And now we'll have the setting to also sync cost. And a lot of online channels allow you to oversell. They allow you to sell an item even when the quantity goes into negative. So there's an option in your Shopify store, continue selling when out of stock. You want to uncheck that if you want to keep a tight control. And what you can also do is anytime the online store has a negative quantity, you can sort of ensure that set the quantity to 0 instead of syncing negative quantities. And so there's a lot of cool settings here that can really automate your business and your inventory levels. We talked about creating products. We talked about syncing inventory. We talked about syncing price and quantity. I'm seeing some questions coming in. If you have any additional questions, please use the chat window to ask those questions. We've got a little over 10 minutes here remaining. And I'm happy to answer those. One question that's coming that just I see in the panel is, I'm switching from QuickBooks to Shopify. Will I continue to use Webgility? I'm going to assume you're on QuickBooks point of sale and you're switching to Shopify point of sale. This question is from Frank. So yes, you will absolutely be able to continue using Webgility even if you switch to Shopify point of sale. In fact, in my demo account, I'm using Shopify POS as well. And as you can see, I have an online channel and my point of sale, and Webgility is pulling in all of the orders, and I'm able to sync them into QuickBooks automatically. And Frank, please, we'll be happy to help you answer that question. I know Intuit is making changes to the way that QuickBooks point of sale is going to, they're actually sunsetting the QuickBooks point of sale product, but we continue to support, we will support QuickBooks point of sale even after it's sunset in October. So it'll still work. But if you decide to move your point of sale to Shopify, we will support Shopify as well. And in fact, if you decide you want to move from QuickBooks to Clover, Square, We're also going to be supporting Lightspeed later this quarter. So we support all the major point of sale systems as well as part of that transition.
And actually, Parag, I've been answering these other questions as we go too. So I think that was the only one that maybe required a little bit more clarification, the one with Frank. And I know Frank said that he did have to get off of the Zoom, but I got his information down, and we're gonna have somebody from CS reach out to him today. So.
Okay, awesome. So we've got 10 minutes here. I would love to, of course, dive into more details, but to kind of make this interactive, John, let's go ahead and unmute all. And, if anyone wants to chime in, we're going to unmute from our end. Your microphone will still be muted, but just hit that green or that red microphone button so it becomes green. If anyone wants to chime in and ask a question live or here to answer. Go ahead and unmute all. If anyone wants to speak up and ask a
doesn't
question.
work too well, so I'm going through and manually unmuting everybody. So if I don't get to you right away, just give me 1 second.
Okay, cool. So I have a question.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So while he's doing that, this is Nancy from Florida. I just wanted to ask about adjusting the quantity as you were showing us just recently by reducing from 100 pieces to 98 pieces. It seems to me like that would avoid some of the issues we're having with overselling.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, if you were to set different quantities levels, that could be helpful, because sometimes when you're selling on multiple channels, if you allocate your entire stock to one channel, you have the potential of overselling. So typically for multi-channel selling, I like to recommend that you distribute your inventory across channels, and maybe the channel that's selling the highest velocity, maybe allocate a higher proportion of your inventory there, but definitely don't set it one-to-one, because that will create situations where you might oversell. I have an open mic here from Latest Vargas. I think you have a question.
Hi, yes, I would like to know how on map one product, because one time we did it, but the system doesn't let us to do it.
I'm sorry.
When we map one product, and then we would like to unmap. So the system.
Okay, so you'd like to basically unmap your products.
Yes.
Okay, great. So because in this case, depending on where your particular products are, I would go over to the All Products tab, and what that product tab does is on the top right, you'll see this filter. Just hit mapped, and then from that mapping, you can hit remove mapping.
Oh. Okay.
And you can also bulk select and hit remove mappings.
Our products. Okay.
And that will help you. So I could just hit that, and it'll remove that mapping, and it will no longer be mapped.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Looks like we have Bill Albright. Bill, you want to chime in with your question? We also have Karen. Hi, Karen. I think I feel like we've talked before.
I'm not sure if my microphone is on. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, Karen, I can hear you just fine.
Great. I just have a request in the order screen. When we have 2 or 3 people filling orders at once, it would be really nice if there was a column that showed that the item had been printed, so nobody prints the same item again. And just to avoid filling an order twice. It's happened, and we try to be careful about it, but it would be a nice feature for us.
Yeah, so something I would recommend, if you haven't already done this, is I know it's kind of hidden, but man, there's so much in this application. You got to kind of be very thoughtful about how big or small you make certain things. Right at the bottom left here, there's this like 3 little button icon that's display settings, and you have a bunch of columns here that are actually hidden. And so if your team is doing like if you've already shipped something, you can create a ship date, the ship carrier. You can also show the notes field for like internal notes and comments. And that would be a good way. So like if you've got an order and your team is it needs to, you know, put a comment on it, you could just add a note, like put an order note here, and the order note will appear here so your other staff members will know not to go process that order.
Okay, well, we could do that. It would be have a column that when we print the packing slip, that it would automatically put a check mark in there. But yeah, we could use it. We could use, I've seen that screen where we can pick the columns, just didn't see one that would solve our problem. And you have talked to me before. I talked to you when you were first starting your business. I don't know how long I've been with you, but it's been 10 or 12 years.
The name absolutely rang a bell. Thank you so much, Karen.
Right, I called for support and you answered it.
Yes, I used to do that, and I do that every now and then. So yeah, definitely great to speak to you again.
There is a column for the same actually. There is PS is the column name, which we can go ahead and select, and that would help you out with that. You can even save it out.
So PS's packing slip has been printed?
Yep. It would let us know. Yep. Yes.
So there's a PS column.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, and it tells me we definitely could improve the naming convention here because it goes clearly hard to understand that PS meant packing slip. We'll take some feedback there and see if we can't change that to packing slip to make it more easy to follow. I have a few other questions. Thank you so much, Karen, again for your question and for your business. Just going down the list here, Khalil Hakini, hopefully Hakani, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right. Khalil, do you want to ask a question? Khalil, going once.
Yeah, and I'm doing my best to go through and answer questions that are in the questions pane. If I don't get to you, expect that we can have somebody reach out. Some of these questions might not be best answered through chat though. So I know Greg, you had a question about or more of a concern really about the handling of Canadian currency, EU, UK, and Middle East. It sounds like we'll probably want to have a conversation more in depth about that. That's generally not something that we can quickly have a conversation about, but I can have somebody reach out directly to you so we can kind of sort that out. We definitely do have the ability to work with multiple currencies, but it does take a little bit of setup. So
that's right.
Yeah, my question is regarding the notifications. We are not getting any notification if there is any error going on behind. So is there a way where we can enable the notification that can show that any error is taking place, the sync is not happening?
Yes, so typically under, if you've got the scheduler running, under the scheduler settings, there's a email daily activity under the scheduler. So that will kind of give you a summary of your daily activity that will tell you errors, but it's also logs can be created. And typically when your scheduler is running, as you saw, hopefully during this webinar, Webgility does bring
I do watch the logs every day, but I need to go and open up that file. But what I want is if there is any error going on when I have to contact the support, if it is being notified somewhere at the bottom.
So I'm not sure we can differentiate between an error that you need to handle versus where you need to contact support, but typically any kind of posting error that that happen will get logged, and it'll either show up in your daily activity summary that's emailed out to you, or it'll appear instantly within the application. And I know we haven't gone into kind of inventory and we haven't gone into order management in this webinar, but
Yeah, I'm
when
aware
you
of it. I'm aware of
when you post orders, an error tab appears when orders have certain errors. So instead of, you could just log into the app and go over to the errors tab. You'll be able to see any order in which a particular error occurred.
Yeah,
Does
but
that
my
answer?
primary concern is only regarding the synchronization. If
Okay.
sync is not happening in or at any store or taking any glitch, that needs to be rectified. That should be
Okay.
notified somewhere.
If we
If you
have
don't
the
mind, maybe you could send us a note to support and maybe give us an example of when you might be having that issue so that we can troubleshoot it in more specific. But generally speaking, whenever you get errors, you would get notified either in the app or through the activity log. So if
Oh,
there's a use case that we might have missed, just let us know and we can look into it for you.
sure. Well, the basic idea is if we can have a panel like in a DOS mode where the log can run as the Webgility works. So we can
Yeah,
have a running node, just
so
like a
technically
teleprinter.
all of the activity logs are tracked in a file. It's an actual text file. So if
Yeah, that I
seems
do
like
watch.
yeah,
But I
so you'd
want
have
that
to
to be that I want to be listed all the time. It should keep on going like a teleprinter. We get the news all the time, so we can put it on another monitor and we can watch it.
yeah,
If any error is going.
it's a good idea. We'll take that feedback. We'll take that feedback. I will tell you, I would love for you to not get any errors.
Yeah,
so
yeah, I
we're
understand.
focused on making sure you don't get errors. But yes, I
Absolutely.
think it makes a lot of sense that if you get an error, could I get like sort of a running screen?
Yeah,
Sure. I think this is a good suggestion. Thank you, Khalil.
yeah. Thank you.
Cool. I think we're almost at time. I don't know if Bill can still hear us. His microphone's unmuted, so not sure if Bill had any questions. And yeah, we're almost coming to a close here.
Yeah, I have one
Tom.
more question regarding the dropship items.
Yeah.
Uh, we need to manually post the order to the QuickBooks if we opt for purchase order option. So it's not going to be automatic.
So
Dropship items.
yeah. So let's get into the quickly into the world of kind of drop shipping. Under your accounting settings, you have to enable purchase orders.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then under purchase orders, you have to set up your purchase order settings. So
Yeah,
kind of like
I
what's my
understand.
default
Yeah, that's
setting.
fine. Okay.
And then you have to specify when to create purchase orders.
Okay.
And if you only want to create purchase orders for items that are marked dropship, or
Great.
items that are marked dropship and then go out of stock in QuickBooks. So
Okay.
and then you can specify whether you want to create separate purchase orders for each item or group them by vendor.
Okay.
And you have a lot more options for purchase orders. But you're right, if you have marked certain products as dropship, then you just want to make sure your purchase order rules are set up correctly so it will create the right purchase order for those items.
And how about the sales receipt? I understand that it is going to create a purchase order for me automatically as per the rules. But how about this creating the sales receipt? Will it be created automatically immediately after the purchase order, or do I need to create purchase receipt manually, sales receipt manually?
So the process is actually inverse. When Webgility receives an order and we have to post it into QuickBooks, the first thing we're going to do is actually create the sales receipt for that order because it's already been placed in your online store. So we create the sales receipt or invoice in whichever case you specify,
Yes.
but we would create the sales receipt first, and then depending on the item availability, we'll create the purchase order as well. So the transaction with the customer is automatically recorded because that sale already occurred, and the purchase order will get created as a subsequent transaction with your vendor, which is the PO that'll be in QuickBooks.
And so that will be created as per the rules immediately after we are getting
Yes.
the order.
That's right.
Okay. So we need not to create a sales receipt manually, or we need not to post the order.
No, I mean, if the settings are configured and the rules, the logic is configured so that whenever an online order is placed, it posts each order, it creates a payment, it creates a sales receipt every time. The purchase order will then get triggered only for items that are marked as out of stock and so forth. If you actually create, I mean, I don't want to get too complicated, but you can choose not to stop creating the sales receipt if there's no inventory available. So
because there won't be inventory available, that has to be drop shipped.
that's right. That's right. So that sequence is what you have to kind of make sure you test and configure, because QuickBooks, for example, also needs to be forced to not allow creation of a sales receipt in negative quantity.
Having negative quantity, that's already marked, yes.
Right. So QuickBooks settings, Webgility settings kind of need to match up correctly, and that will ensure that your sequence in which the purchase order is created and the sequence in which the sales receipt is created is done correctly. Now, if you were to do the inverse, let's say you didn't want to create the sales receipt and your setting says don't create the sales receipt,
that's
then
true,
it'll
yes.
just create the purchase order, and then you'll have to go back in and then push the order back into QuickBooks to create the sales receipt.
That has to be done manually.
Yes, I mean, you have to go to the order and hit post again.
Okay, fine. That's good. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been an incredibly interactive session. I thank you all for the questions. There's a few folks, if we haven't gotten to your questions, we'll definitely answer them for you over email. As always, you know how to reach us, and really appreciate your business and your time for attending today's webinar. We'll have a recording available, and we'll be sharing that out with all of you as well. So thank you all for attending today's webinar, and hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks so much.